Hello, and thank you once again for your magical memories of the world of music, theatre, and dance. Now, if it hadn't been for a breaking voice at the age of 14, you may have had the opportunity to see my next guest perform on stage in the town hall at the top of Hill Street, but fate destined him to be the greatest showman in the ever-changing theatre space that is the heart of Hill Street, welcoming his audiences 6 days a week, 8 hours a day for 47 years into the variety show of the live, ever-changing and challenging world of the retail experience. But now, after 47 years serving the people of Newry and beyond, the curtain will fall for the last time on a family business that stretches back to the 1800s. Today, he's in the spotlight, front and centre, and I'm in conversation with Declan McChesney.
Hiya, Declan. Lovely to be here, and I'm honoured to be asked among such wonderful thespian company.
I know you've been enjoying the conversation so far,
Yes,
and
I have indeed.
I think, when you look at it, the talent that we have in Newry and the surrounding districts is incredible, and we sort of punch above our weight.
Do you know, Declan, I have to tell you, because of the world that I've lived in, I know for a fact that Newry punches way above its weight. In the very early days, I was quite involved in theatre and opera and in singing through school, through the choirs, through opera, all that. I was always in there, always with maybe minor rather than major lead roles, but I really enjoyed it and I loved to be on the stage and I loved all that. But I suppose I've hidden behind an element of sensitivity that I didn't show, and the Christian Brothers always had a way of getting a screwdriver in there and winkling it out. And what happened to my singing career was we were practicing for another opera. And what they used to do was seed a singer among the chorus just to find the voices. And I was one of the seeds they used to put in there. So we would be leading the singers and the scales and one thing and another. And Brother Young was listening, and he was at the group I was seeding, and he suddenly went, "Hold on, you lot, sing again." And then he went round us, and then he went round again, and then he went round a third time, kept telling us to sing again. And then he just went and he just pointed at me and he goes, "You, get out." And literally, that was the end of my singing career because my voice was starting to break.
Right.
And rather than that, the sensitivity that maybe a young fella of 14 might have needed, I then had to take the so-called walk of shame right across in front of the whole leaders and chorus and everything and out the door. And that was the end of that.
Oh,
So
you
then,
shouldn't have given up. I'll share with you as well. I went for, I suppose would you call it an audition for the cathedral choir in
yes,
Father Seamus Moore's time,
yes,
and
I was tournaments.
you had to sing a tune. I think it must have been first year in school, and I had to so 11 or 12, and had to sing a tune. And Father Seamus Moore said to me, "Come back next year when your voice is broken." And I never went back. Was there any other music and musical traditions within your family, or anyone else take part in music through all those
Oh,
years?
I come from a very musical family. My grandmother on my mother's side, when my mother came from good old farming stock out round Bar and Glen, which I think is somehow familiar in your neck of the
Yeah.
woods, and she, the woman, always stayed at home, but she was a music teacher. She lived, eat, and breathed music. So um, there was music there, and there was music. My sisters were all very musical, and then I was sent off to piano lessons, and that would have required practice. And it's either I'm perfect on day one, or there's a bit of a problem. So that passed me on the way by as well. So yes, there's music tradition. I mean, I absolutely adore music, and I'm never anywhere without music somewhere nearby. But as a performer, musical performer, sadly no. After the Abbey, I got enough to go on to college, and my my vocation, would you believe, was hotel management. And I went off to hotel management college in England, And I acted in a fair few plays there, and some of them were mad, some of them were bad, and some of them were both mad and bad, because the writers were from the cohort of students as well. And it always seemed, if you pardon the expression, you really had to simulate sex on the stage, and then the play worked. And I thought, no, they're not getting their teeth into it. So I suppose I just went back to the students' bar, basically, you know. And a person who I look at with stars in my eyes is the great Donald O'Hanlon.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, like Donald was at school with me. Okay, I was older than him. I'm older than everybody. And Donald came through school, and he had his own way, but the boards were for Donald. Definitely the boards were for Donald. And I remember going to a play, a New Point play, and Donald was there, and he birthed on stage. And I just thought, when he appeared through the birth canal, which was a cardboard box, onto the stage, naked except for a nappy, I just thought, I'm not even sure that I could do that, you know.
Donald is someone who will throw himself into anything, and I think if you listen back to the conversation that I had with Donald as well, you'll hear all of that coming through.
I always say to Donald now when I see him, you know, one of the things I'm lucky with, the way I was called late to the marital bed. So I spent a lot of my life traveling here and there. And I spent a little time in Africa. And I spent a bit of time with the Maasai. And I always say when I see Donald walking along, he has that wonderful Maasai lope. I watched Donald walk up Mary Street one day. I was stuck on the other side of the road waiting to get into traffic. I was fascinated at Donald's loping walk. I just think Donald's never off the stage now in his head.
How long had Cahill Brothers been then on Hill Street in that location?
Since 1894. The Cahill brothers were my father's mother, his brothers. Do you get me? So they were Cahills, and they needed someone to come down because they owned another shop in Castle Blaney, and they came to Newry, and they picked this building, and this building had been a butcher shop, and it was McDonald's butcher shop, and the McDonald lived in just off Ravensdale. In fact, he lived where Fitzpatrick's is now. And there used to be a photograph behind the counter of Mr. McDonald's daughter, whose name was Angela. And that's how Angela's was so named. So they took it over in 1894.
And that family tradition was maintained in the business right through to
Right through
you up to the
right
present
through till
day.
we close in 2 weeks. Yeah.
That's amazing, isn't it? I mean, that's a huge sense of tradition within that space, isn't it?
Absolutely. But there was no room for a fourth generation coming in. It's very, very hard work running a business. You have to have so many hats. And my children are all in different directions and happy to be in their different directions. One here, one temporarily home from Canada to help us close, and another one in Bermuda. And they're not going into the business. So the time came to throw the hat onto the hook.
What was day one for you 47 years before that?
47 years ago, I was told that I had to come back to Newry, being the only son, one thing and another. So I named the date, and it was around the 8th of February, and 1974, I think, yes. And the only problem was that was a Monday. No, it was a Tuesday, because that weekend was the Rugby International in Edinburgh. So I went to Edinburgh for the International and trashed myself completely, completely trashed myself. And then came home late on the Monday night and started my new career in the family business on the Tuesday morning at 9 o'clock, so shivering in the horrors of reality, alcohol, and rugby trauma. And it moved on from there.
The first day was a long day.
It was a long day, and I was sent into, we had numerous different departments in those days, and I was sent into the men's department, And then about 4 o'clock, my father just came up and he says, "You get in the shoe department." I knew nothing about shoes. And then began my shoe career. So
Well,
in the horrors on my first day.
so, and people probably forget there's a generation that wouldn't know that actually the shop was more than just a shoe shop. It was, as you say, gents
Oh, it
clothing,
was the
ladies
whole
clothing,
shebang.
the whole.
Ladies, gents, materials, household, the whole shebang.
I suppose in all of us there's a little performer, and even
Oh,
in retail there's a performance in
well,
retail as well,
I
isn't
was
there?
wondering, would you bring that up? You see, the very thing about my life all along has been that I've had my own private stage in fact, for 47 years. I've continuously, when I was in my shop, I'm continuously on the stage. I'm continuously acting, and I'm both ad-libbing, I'm pulling the lines, and then I'm playing the game to see how much reaction I can evoke. Oh, and on the other end of it all, I'm selling shoes, but that's not the important.
If you
The
sell a pair
important
of shoes or a pair of boots, that's a bonus.
That's exactly it. And so is 2 or 3 pair, but that's another thing.
Yeah.
But it's just inside everybody, there is a flower waiting to flourish. And it has been my role, I feel, to water that flower in as many people as I get, because I have the right to have a one-to-one with people. And selling shoes is like being a hairdresser and almost like being a doctor. There's an intimacy to it.
Mm-hmm.
So you can get in there and you can bring out the person, and over the years, you realize that when someone comes into the shop to me, like, you watch a ship dock at the harbor, they throw a rope, somebody catches the rope, and then it draws everything in. Well, I have a conversational rope that has about 5 topics in it, and I watch for the hook, or not the hook, the topic to catch the person. And they'll pick one of the topics. And once they pick the topic, they're there.
But yours is an unscripted performance as well, because as soon as you pull the shutters up, the
Yeah.
day begins, the play begins. It's almost like there's a show that we did with New Point. It was one of my first shows, actually, lit with New Point to get through to the Opera House finals, was Under Milk Wood, which is the story of
I
the Welsh
love that.
village. And, and each street within Newry has its own theatrical performance going on every day.
Yeah, but you have amazing performers that make up the tapestry and the fabric of it. And the thing about it is that if you walk into a room and the wall is covered with a tapestry, you may notice the room, you mightn't notice the tapestry. But if you're in the room for long enough, I know the people who are weaving the tapestry on Hill Street and who create the image that, and you have all these decriers who are a special group themselves, who decry Hill Street and all about it. Yet they don't realize that every business that's on Hill Street and every office, everything, that they're exceptionally active, profitable, and vibrant. But if you want to see a dark day, like I'm looking out my window at the sea, and there's a bit of blue and there's a bit of grey. I see the blue. I don't see the grey.
Yeah.
But I feel sorry for the people who see the grey.
And it proves that the street and the heritage is more than bricks and mortar. It's the people as well, and that community that you can build. And there is an interdependency among those businesses and that business community to support and nurture your audience, if you like, the audience that you're going to bring to Hill Street.
You're quite correct in that one, and it we see these people, and some of them have been there. Well, very few of them have been there before me. I'm 47 years there, but you see people who have grown through, and they disappear, and then, thankfully, out of the blue, some of the great characters reappear. You're not old enough to remember James E. Kelly or the Goat or any of those people who were on Hill Street. And maybe I'm delivering shoes to Ardmain, the nursing home, also my own home, old home. And there was all those people in Ardmain, James E. Kelly, who for someone slightly more mature than you, will think he was an icon on Hill Street. And anybody, when they hear the name, will hear Jamesy sold newspapers on Saturday night. We'll hear him, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah.
But that was the stage, the tapestry, and the theatre.
Well, now
That is
Jamesy had the bicycle going through Hill Street.
correct. Oh yeah,
See, you see,
yeah.
I'm not as
Good
young
on
as
you,
you think,
Declan.
yes, Mr. McChesney.
Yeah,
Over 47 years, there's been an ebb and a flow within the street as well, hasn't there?
absolutely,
So,
absolutely. But
yeah.
funny, um, I've I kind of, I know it sounds very stupid, but I've always loved the water, always loved the water, and how the water ebbs and flows, and how it affects where it meets the land. And when you say the population ebbs and flows, I take you back to the days that maybe there was 3 and 4 hour queues to get into Newry.
Mhm.
That nearly bankrupted Hill Street because everybody who who were at home on Hill Street were pushed out by the beer and biscuits mob. And the rest of us who were in a different business, we were really getting hammered, you know. So sometimes the things that you read, and that period of time did so much harm insofar as if you had an idea and a bucket and a spade to sell, if you opened a shop in Hill Street, you really sold it. But once the tide went out, those people were abandoned and washed up, and their businesses closed, and it left us with a mouth with a few teeth missing. But that is now coming back, thank God. Though I have to say, I'm one of the ones who won't be there anymore. I've decided to hang up my boots, you know. But I've changed my stage from Hill Street to I have another business where I supply every major shop in Ireland with shoes. So now my stage is the entire island of Ireland, you know. So it's
Well,
even much more fun,
the,
you
the,
know.
the Hill Street will not be the same, Declan,
It'll be well,
without
you
your
know.
smile there and your greeting as people pass your door, because
No, but
even from the back of the
Declan,
shop,
I
you
remember
wave at
I
people
worked
as they
in
pass by.
I remember I worked in Arnott's, and you know, you learn salutary lessons in your life. It was my first. I went to work in Dublin. Now that was a new stage. Little Declan from Newry with all this big Dublin buzz, and I was working in Arnott's, and uh, I knew a couple of people from Belfast who had moved down to Dublin, and they were hairdressers, and I, I kind of had a reputation for being a wee bit wild, Declan. Now, God forgive me, I don't know how that happened, but the people used to say I used to do rather crazy stuff. But at 20 years old, the girl who cut my hair said to me, "You know, Declan, you can't live up to Declan McChesney all your life." And that facilitated change in my life. And when I worked in Arnott's, Arnott's was oh my God, it was like a greenhouse of fun. And then I came to leave, and uh, there had a party for me. And somebody said to me, "I know the way you think. Here's a poem." And the poem that I read out at the going away do was when you have your hand in a bucket of water, when you take your hand out of the bucket of water, the water closes in and it's as if you were never there. And that's the way life is. And I'm very content with that because immortality does not exist. It's a wish for the needy.
When you look at the street and you look at Hill Street, sitting right at the top of Hill Street is the town hall. And that,
Yes.
for me, from when I was in the fish, and again, ebbing and flowing and moving to Belfast and coming back has been a space that I've loved to be in, to see shows in and performing shows in. And we, as I suppose, theatre companies and theatre groups sit there at the top of Hill Street. Um, and sometimes, it can be a little bit of its own community. And I just wonder, what does the business community see when you're looking at that with a business eye and that iconic building at the top of the town hall? Do you see value in nurturing the cultural and the arts and the creative life within the town?
I see huge value. I mean, I can't tell you how important I feel it. We are emerging from that terrible dark period of the Troubles. And in the middle of the Troubles, art was sucked out of the hearts of people. But one of the things that happens is the ground becomes very fertile for the arts after a period of trouble. Now, my heart is always going to be in Newry and on Hill Street. I live in Rostrevor now and have done for many years, but I'm from Newry and I have great pride in Newry and all it has succeeded. We became a city, and even John Reid, I don't know if anybody remembers him, he was the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland. And we put in our city bid and they laughed at us. They laughed at us in Westminster. They laughed at us in Dublin. And when we launched it, we launched it also in Stormont. Our music was a lambeg drum and a tin whistle because we said that Newry could do it. And we went ahead and we got the city, which is an achievement that people don't really realize, because businesses search for locations. They don't want to locate in a town. They want to locate in a city, and then they want to locate where there is art and leisure. Newry has a thriving art and thriving leisure with the Mourns and all that. But I've always felt it's so important, because art brings culture, brings understanding, and brings a wealth of spirit that is needed.
Do you have a favorite show at all?
You did, of course, mention Under Milkwood, and I have been in love with Under Milkwood since I lifted the book down when I was about 13, 14-year-old, and I read it, and always we can hear the voices in our head, and the sheer beauty of the poetry was there. Now, in a show, I went to loads of theatre in Dublin when we were living there, and one thing and another. But, you know, you asked me if it was a show that I would love to see come on the stage in Newry that I would love to go to. And it's that show, the Rocky Horror Show. Oh, sure, I just love that.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to go to that every Friday in the cinema in Rathmines.
Did you jump to the left? And did you jump to the right?
Yeah. Oh, I certainly did.
Did you wiggle your hips?
Absolutely. It was just the business, you know. And, you know, I remember one night going with Mary Ann, my wife, and I was feeling rather blue, and the black cloud was over my head, and I came out of there on top of the world again. It was just such a live and electric show. I just loved it. I just loved it. So, yes, it doesn't have the depth or width, but it has the joy and the electricity.
There are shows like that as well. Mamma Mia is the same. I come out of Mamma Mia and think, you know, life is good. Is it great?
Yeah, people say that. I managed to avoid that so far.
I always thought you were one of the Bee Gees, you know, not ABBA, you know.
Well, that's a tragedy.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, I have to tell you, Declan, I sort of have kept a good relationship with an awful lot of the people that I've met in my journey in life. And the very first week that I went to work in Arnott's in Dublin, my first week wages, I went round to Cable Street, where all the tailors lived in Dublin. And yes, I got a tailor-made white suit, and I loved my white suit. And I show it to my kids because only 2 days ago, the girl who I was going out with 49 years ago at that time, who lives in Holland now, and we still would communicate the odd time to each other, she sent me 2 photographs of us at a dance one night, and me in my white suit with my black big pointed toe collar, and oh, sure, I was Jack the Hat.
You've got to send me a copy of that, and we'll share it with the audience. Oh, you will.
I might.
You know what you need to do?
I have the courage. I'll do it.
You need to put that suit on. Would it still fit you? Do you think it would still fit you?
Oh, for flip's sake, I wouldn't get it on my finger now.
From
I would not get it on my finger.
From Best's up at Bank Parade, all the way down to the market.
But you know,
with a bit of jive talking.
Well, I have to say, I did wear it to very many places and got away with it. You know, certainly. In fact, I don't know if you can see that.
Yes, I can. Yeah, yeah, that's the suit.
That's me in my white suit.
Excellent.
I'll send it to you.
Good man.
Everybody needs a laugh.
Listen, Declan, it's been a real joy to talk to you, and thank you so much
It's joy to be asked, I have to tell
for
you.
all the time that you gave performing on Hill Street. Wonderful theatre,
Well,
theatre of
I looked
business.
after their souls and their souls.